Yo, what's going on, guys? Rhys here from More Than Lifting with the More Than Lifting podcast. Conversations about calisthenics, bodyweight training, gymnastics, all that good stuff. I'm Rhys, personal trainer and founder of More Than Lifting from the UK, and in this episode we're going to be talking about calisthenics and bodyweight training at home. How to train at home, what you need, what the advantages are, what the disadvantages are, and realistically what your limitations are in terms of the exercises and skills that you can use in your programs if you're training at home. Okay, there's lots and lots to talk about in this episode, but I'm going to try and keep it to about 3 or 4 things for each point because I don't want to just ramble on for ages. These are short podcasts, 15, 10, 20 minutes, maybe 25 at a stretch, but it's supposed to be quick, actionable stuff straight to the point. So I'm going to try not to go off on one and ramble about stuff like I normally do. And hopefully this will be one of the best ones we've done. One thing I love actually about calisthenics is just training at home. I really enjoy it. I love trying new skills, and we're going to get into that in a bit, but it's really it's great. I've been doing a lot of training at home because I've been getting all my bits out again. It's really easy when you're training at home not to. So it's really easy when you're at home not to train because it's just at home. So when I've been getting my stuff out, I've been really getting into it recently, and it's just been getting back into the cycle of training at home rather than going down the gym or going somewhere else and training. But this is part of a 3-part series. The last episode we covered gym training at the gym, so if you didn't listen to that, go check that out. And in the next one, we're going to be talking about training outdoors as well, because there's loads of options when you're training outdoors. There's loads of stuff you can do and places you can go, and it's all one big adventure. So back to training at home anyway. The first thing that people always ask is what can you use? What can you use at home? How can you train at home? And it's a big stopping point for a lot of people, because if you can't immediately think, right, I can do this, or if you're thinking, I want to do muscle up training and work on my back lever or whatever, if you don't have anything that you can do a back lever off or back lever progressions, then you're like, I can't do it, never mind, and then you just don't end up doing any training. But there's loads of stuff you can do at home. So first things, floor space, like I said in the last one, it kind of turns up in every of the 3 different situations, but floor space is obviously one thing you can use. You've got it at home, so all you need is enough to kind of sit on the floor or lay on the floor, and you're pretty good to go. You can also use your wall or something like that if you can for your handstands. But there is an issue with that we'll get into in a bit. Floor space, you got your mobility work, stretches, you can do your push-ups, you can do planche training, your elbow levers, your handstand stuff, crow stands, all your isometric kind of standing stuff. That can all be done just on the floor. All right, so that's one thing straight away. Floor space, you can do that. So next then is pull-up bar, and I'm a really big advocate of having one of these in your house because they're cheap for a start. It cost me £15 or something like that on Amazon. It's delivered the next day. It's almost as fast as a gym membership, and it's a one-time payment. You can now do pull-ups at home. Yes, it has its limitations. You can't do muscle ups because they often have your neutral bar sticking out, your little parallel ones. And so that kind of almost limits how high you can pull up as well. But the advantage of that is it makes you kip less and swing less, and that's good because I'm always nervous about it just falling off the door frame. It's never happened to me, but that might just be because I'm so nervous. They do come with these little clips that go in the other side of your door frame but if you've seen them, they are flimsy. They look so weak, and they just don't like that they'd be able to help at all. But I'd still definitely put it in. All right. The good thing about this is you can do stuff like your lever training. You can do your front lever training, your back lever training, provided you have space on either side of the limitation with this is if your door frame just opens up into a wall, and then you can kind of be limited with like straddle exercises, but that's about it. You know, you can practice German hangs like tucked, because you'll be able to touch the floor in a German hang. So doing them tucked, you know, you probably have to do your pull-ups tucked. I mean, I've never met anyone short enough to be able to do like hang-in pull-ups from a pull-up bar in your door frame. But you know, the other limitation is leg raises as well. So like leg raises are quite difficult to do because you have to switch to tuck every time you come down to like dead hang. Alternatively, you can just go down to L-sit or go down to like the next 45 degrees, so your toes are just pointing at the floor, and then come back up. But they are very difficult, both styles of that kind of half rep, if you want your half rep leg raise, because you're doing the hardest part all the time, like the top part. But they can be done, like they are really good. You can do your L-sit flutter kicks and hanging L's and stuff like that on them. You can also use them kind of like parallettes. So if you haven't got particularly great wrist mobility, but you want to work on your planche, or if you haven't got particularly good shoulder mobility and you want to work on your L-sit, then you can use your door frame pull-up bar, because you just put it on the floor like so it's standing there, and you've got two like loops. The bit that dangles kind of hangs down, that fixes one bar to the other. That you can use as nice little parallettes. They might be a little bit tight if you've got quite broad shoulders, but they're great for just lifting you up, like parallettes will just lift you up slightly off the ground. Honestly, double functionality, that's really cool. You should definitely use your pull-up bar on the floor as well. It's not just for hanging around. So the next thing then, all right, and although we've spoken about parallettes, I'm going to say the next thing the important one you can get is dipping bars, because otherwise you can't really do, like with parallettes are great, don't get me wrong, but with dipping bars you can do dips. You can't do dips on parallettes. They're just not. You just can't hang from it in that supported position. So that's kind of out of the question unless you have dipping bars, just like the pull-up bar with your pull-ups. Now, dipping bars, they used to be like so expensive, and now they're not really. You can get them pretty cheap on Amazon, again, next day delivery. I don't know exactly off the top of my head, but you're probably looking about £25, I reckon, up to like 70. I mean, you probably get a £70 set. The important thing to think about, though, is the geometry of them. All right, you want to get separate dip bars so you can make them wider, make them narrower, but you want ones that are high enough and kind of long enough for you to try Russian dips, because you can do them at home as well then, or to be able to do single bar dips. Okay, so you need quite a long, kind of the parallel, the actual grip part of the actual grip part of the dipping bars needs to be long enough for you to be able to do single bar dips on it. It doesn't need to, but that is it's an advantage. You can kind of do narrow grip, and you can kind of do the kind of push-up variation, the push-up variation of the single bar dip. But if you can't do the single bar dips, then that's a really good exercise to help you progress towards muscle ups. If you can't do them, like having a dipping bar where you can kind of do your single bar dip and maybe like even do a negative muscle up to like that kind of hanging at your top of your pull-up position, so you can work that negative kind of transition part of the muscle up. That's really good as well. So the reason that these two, the pull-up bar and the dipping bars, are the most important ones is because they allow you to do your dips, your leg raises, your pull-ups, and work towards other exercises as well. Like you see people on like Instagram and YouTube and stuff who do front levers off their dipping bars. I can't do that on mine. I don't know if it's just me, but I really struggle with maybe it's the geometry of my dipping bars, sorry, because I always struggle with being lying on the floor and touching the floor. But you see people do them quite comfortably, so I haven't got particularly expensive dipping bars, but you can get ones from like Gravity Fitness and stuff like that, who they probably make great ones that are actually designed by guys who do this stuff, so the geometry I'm sure is great on them. So that's dipping bars. You can obviously double these up as parallettes. You can use them to do like deep push-ups, kind of pelican style push-ups. I guess you kind of really need rings for proper pelican push-ups, but there's no reason you can't do something similar on your dipping bars. You can obviously do your planche and your elbow levers. You can potentially do front and back lever stuff, although you will be very close to the ground. So there are loads and loads of different options you can do with them, which is why they're so good. All right, and also you can take them outside and do handstands on them and get used to doing handstands at height. All right, if you're like a gymnast or you're working on, if you've been trying anything like that, where you want to do like handstands on P-bars or handstand on a high bar like you would off a muscle up or something, that's a really good practice for them because they're slightly higher. It's not dangerously high yet, so you can still land on your feet quite comfortably. All right, so that's been a bit of a ramble so far. Sorry about that, guys. I promised I wouldn't do that too. But now we're going to talk a little bit about the advantages of training at home. So the first one is little to no cost. The bits of kit that you can get don't cost a lot to get a kind of minimal setup. It's very, very cheap. You can go all out and get a crazy setup for like less than £100 still. So you've got loads of options of stuff, but the main point is you only need one or two bits. It's not recurring costs. You're not paying £50, £70 a month or whatever for your gym membership. You pay just £50 or £70 once, buy 3 or 4 bits of kit that'll last you almost forever and go absolutely mad. So that's obviously the first advantage. Very, very good. So the other thing is that it's always available. You don't need to go traveling for something or to a gym, for example, or to a park where you're going to go and do your training. If it's always there, you can leave it lying around so that it's hanging around all the time. Leave it in your door frame, so every time you walk past, you're like, trigger, do pull-ups, do a lever, like whatever skill you're working on, just do it quick. And that's a great way to progress really fast because you're doing lots and lots of training. It's really good for your neuromuscular connectivity, which your skills training and stuff like that, which is quite advanced kind of technical stuff, but it's important. And so just know that it's really good to do that, because the more that you have stuff lying around and sitting around, I'm not saying leave your house and mess with all your gym stuff, you know, don't fall out with your girlfriend or your spouse or anyone else for it. But what I am saying is just having it in front of you all the time is just reminders all the time to look after your body, work on your skills, you know, and ultimately get in better shape. So really that's it for the advantages. The no travel, you can train any time of day you want, little to no cost. It's all, you can leave it lying around, so it's always in front of you. Now we'll talk a little bit about disadvantages. Okay, and there are disadvantages, obviously. There are reasons why training at home might not work for you. And the first one is motivation. Okay, and like I said at the start of the episode, I've had time, they've all been in storage, like hiding in cupboards, or just generally not being around for me to do training. And it's quite easy to use that as an excuse as well. Not having a bit of kit, I can't do any training because I don't have any stuff. That's why floor space is up on my list, because you can still do a lot of stuff just with floor space. But ultimately, motivation, if you're not fired up and excited about training, you won't do it. All right, and when the TV's on, or you're trying to make dinner and stuff like that, and you've got 1,000 things you've got to do on your list in the 3 hours you have in the evening, it's easy to not train because that's not number one on the list. That's not the most urgent thing. So you brush it off. Next thing, it's been 3 months and you haven't done any training, or it's been 9 months and you've put on loads of weight, and you just lose that momentum, which you need to keep to help build habits. Everyone knows this. You need to do stuff repeatedly, and habitually to make it a habit. Hence the habitual part. So point is, motivation can be an issue. If you're one of those, if you got time where like in the morning you can set it up so you just do training straight away, or just before you go to bed you do training, although that isn't recommended, like right before bed, you can build that habit quite easily and you can kind of dodge the motivation thing. But you can still say, that's not enough training, you want to do something else. And if you can't be asked when you come home, or you have an argument with someone, or there's 1,000 reasons, 1,000 little distractions where you could be demotivated to train at any one point. Which, when you go to the gym or you're going to like a park to go training, it's a bit different because you've already done the initial part of the motivation bit by starting to go to the gym or starting going down the park, whether it's even just getting changed or just getting up out of your seat. You've started that, so the motivation is kind of easier to compound, and once it's rolling, it's up and it's alive. Whereas training at home, it's more difficult to get that momentum going. So the next thing is limited space. All right, you don't always have loads and loads of space to go to train in your house. All right, it depends. If you've got like a little studio flat, you might not have a lot of room. If you live in a little room share, like house share thing, you might only have your kind of bedroom to work with. You might have a small flat. You might have there's loads of different reasons, even if it's just for the amount of space you have actually available to you. Yes, okay. So push-ups, you only need, like you lying on the floor, you only need that much space. So you could argue that you can still do a lot of stuff, but you might not have somewhere you can hang your pull-up bar from, or somewhere you can put your dips. For each individual, it can be a different degree of a disadvantage. You might not have any, like some space might not be a limit for you, but it can quite easily be. And it doesn't need to be, which is the point, but it's easy to use that as an excuse, and it's easy to you could argue that it's easy just to move your furniture around, but doing that every night just so you can do your workout, like that affects your motivation and everything else. So limited space is a disadvantage. The next one is the last one is ceiling height. Okay, we talked about it a little bit in the gym. Ceiling height is also an issue at home, all right? And it's not just for muscle ups, but also for handstands, okay? And I'm not the tallest guy. I'm only like 5'9", so I can do handstands at home. But if you're like 6 foot, 7 feet, I don't know, 7 feet, what am I bloody talking about? If you're like 6'4" or something like that, you might struggle to do handstands at home because your feet, you might just keep kicking the wall and the ceiling, so that can be an issue as well. So especially if you're trying to do it with parallettes, like I can't do it handstands at home with parallettes because my feet hit the ceiling. So imagine someone who's 6'4", it's going to be even less likely that they're going to be able to do handstands, So that's one really big issue with training at home. Yes, you can go in the garden or outside out the front. If you're in flats, that's even harder because where you're supposed to, you can walk down 3 flights of stairs just to do a handstand. I don't think so. Motivation, but so ceiling height can be a problem. You can still do things like your wall walks to a degree, but you are limited. You're better off going outside and doing them out there. Like that's the disadvantage of being really tall, I guess. You're struggling to train at home, but anyway, that's really the only other limitation is the ceiling height. If you've got like an old building, really high ceilings, or you got somewhere outside you can put a pull-up bar or whatever in good weather most of the time, or like a garage or whatever, and you've got the space for it, then that's great. Ceiling height might not be an issue for you, but for the majority of people, ceiling height, you won't be able to do muscle ups, you won't be able to do handstands on your parallettes or on dipping bars, definitely, and even handstands on the floor might be an issue for some of you. So that is another big disadvantage for people with training at home. So that is about it actually, guys, for this episode. So we've talked about 4 bits of kit really, like your floor space, your pull-up bar, your dipping bars and parallettes we touched on a little bit as well. You can also get loads of other stuff, like a exercise ball, for example, is a really good one because you can use it for loads of stuff, for stability training, for support with other levers and skills, and for a nice little comfy chair. And you can also get things like foam rollers, rings, which you can hang from your pull-up bar, and other stuff as well. I'm not going to just carry on with that. So you've also got the advantages, which are low costs, it's always available, and there's no travel involved. And you've also got the disadvantages as well, which are motivation can be a big part of it, having limited space around, and also your ceiling height is a big disadvantage for people trying to do things like muscle ups and stuff like that. You can get around it with your dipping bars for a little bit, but I mean, ultimately you're bodge job in your workouts, aren't you, if you're doing stuff like that? It doesn't mean it's not effective, but if you can go out to a park one day and do muscle up training there, then, you know, then it's not an issue. So that's it for this episode, guys. If you like what you heard, subscribe, share us with your mates, give us a honest 5-star rating and review, cheeky little wink, and yeah, and like I said before, this is part 2 of a 3-part series. So if you're interested in training at the gym, listen to the previous episode. I've got loads of different tips and tricks and advantages and all kinds of stuff in there. And don't forget to check back in a couple of days for the next episode where we're talking about training outdoors. Okay, so don't forget to check me on morethanlifting.com. For a start, you can go to morethanlifting.com/podcast to find out all the episodes, or you can check us out on wherever you're listening, Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes, or whatever, and YouTube even. And yeah, check us out on Instagram at morethanlifting, Twitter, check us out on Facebook, you know, all the usual. Check us out on all the social places. It's mostly at morethanlifting. And give me a DM or a message, show us what your training's like, ask me if you want any tips, or if you've got any questions, you know, feel free to just reach out to me. I'm a human being. Otherwise, keep in touch with yourselves. I'll catch you in a couple of days for the next one.